Hey guys, YouTuber 100 here. Okay, and this is something that I have been thinking about for the last few days. Because I've noticed that over the years, the WWE has always seemed to have this problem. Whenever they go up against another promotion, or another sport, or just when they're, yeah, you know what I'm getting at. Just like when they go against something that's another promotion outside the WWE. If it's like WWE versus another sport or something. Or if it's like wrestling versus another sport. Yeah, because this is a problem that the WWE seems to always have, well, at least have a lot of the times whenever they do this kind of stuff. It seems like the WWE always wants to present themselves as heels whenever they go into a kind of situation like this. Because this has been going on for years when the WWE has gone against like another promotion, like when they've gone, like if it's like WWE versus the ECW or the WWE versus another sport like football or basketball or another type of sport like that. Yeah, it just seems like the WWE always likes trying to have themselves appear as heels while the other promotion is presented as the face. Like, what sense does it make actually? Like, if you're a wrestling promotion and you're promoting, like, yourselves and wrestlers as bad guys against another promotion or another sport, like, you're basically saying that the WWE is bad and the other thing is good. Like, I just don't see why the WWE always likes to do this whenever it's, like, an interpromotional feud or something. I mean, it just really doesn't make sense. I mean, you're a wrestling show and you're the WWE. And you're also like the WWE. If you're going against like another wrestling promotion in a rivalry, wouldn't you want to actually defend your honor and actually like make yourselves look good and make the other promotion look bad? I mean, it just really doesn't make sense when the WWE does this. And these like do this a lot when they have like rivalries like this. So yeah, let me just go through a little bit of a timeline of the WWE having this problem over the years. So, yeah, of course there was like Bam Bam Bigelow versus Lawrence Taylor at WrestleMania 11. You have Bam Bam Bigelow, the wrestler, versus Lawrence Taylor, the football player. And yeah, you know what happened in that match. You had like Bam Bam Bigelow being backed up by wrestlers, and Lawrence Taylor being backed up by football players. And yet, in a wrestling promotion, on the biggest wrestling show of the year, you're having the wrestlers who are actually part of the promotion and company that this match is in versus a football player, not a wrestler. So you're basically like just making it seem like football was better than wrestling. Like, what sense does it make actually having wrestlers appear as bad guys against football players on wrestling's biggest show of the year? I mean, it just doesn't make sense for WWE to do something like that. I mean, why would they actually, like, basically say football is good and wrestling is bad? Basically, like, football is better than wrestling. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, couldn't they have done, like, I know, like, Bam Bam Bigelow was a heel at that time, and yeah, it was, like, the $1 Million Corporation that was a heel stable backing up Bam Bam Bigelow in that match, but, I mean, couldn't they have done it in another way where, like, you just have wrestlers in general, not, like, a heel stable. Like, you actually have wrestlers backing up Bam Bam Bigelow. Like, even, like, some face wrestlers are backing up Bam Bam Bigelow. At least you can, like, say, like, in that case, you can have it be, like, just, even though, like, they may not like Bam Bam Bigelow is, like, still a wrestler, and they're all wrestlers, so they want, actually, the guy that's basically fighting on their behalf, if they actually want to back him up and make wrestling actually look good against a football player. But instead, it's just like you have a bunch of heels and a stable backing up Bam Bam Bigelow to basically try to say that wrestling is bad and football is good. Basically saying, like, wrestling is evil. That just really doesn't make sense to me. And another one is, like, we know about the ECW invasions that have gone on WWE. Starting with that ECW invasion in, like, early 1997, like, you had when Jerry Lawler appeared on ECW television, And then, like, he issued a challenge to ECW, and then the ECW then invaded Raw during that time. And basically, you had, like, ECW being looked at as faces, is in, like, that little rivalry that went on when ECW invaded the WWE in 1997. Like, how does it make sense to have another promotion who's, like, one of your competitors actually look better than you? Basically saying that they're good and you're bad. I mean, once again, what sense does that make? I mean, you even had, like, the fans actually, like, supporting ECW, and, you know, like, I remember, like, Paul Heyman, like, during that time, he was asking the crowd if the show had sucked without ECW, and the fans actually, like, supported that, basically saying yes. So, what sense does it make? I mean, this was the WWF. I mean, wouldn't it make sense for the fans actually to be behind the promotion that that the show they're actually at and they're attending? And yet, like, they're basically just saying, screw you, we didn't come to see you. We're here to, like, support ECW and show that it's better than you. Like, what sense does it make doing that? And I'm gonna get to something. And, yeah, and there's another one I'm talking about right here. And it just kind of makes this not make sense. And even, like, something else that happens later on, which I'm gonna get to in this video also. Like, but, yeah, what sense does it make to actually have, like, ECW, if they're invading the WWF and they're on behalf of the WWF, they have their own promotion, and yet they look as faces, and basically the company that this invasion is taking place in, and is, like, looking like the heel here. What sense does it make? And then we all had, like, and then there was the invasion storyline in 2001. I mean, at least they got it right, where, like, the WCW and the ECW were actually looked at as the heels, and the WWF was looked as the face. So at least I got it right there. But it wasn't until they looked as heels until, like, ECW then came along and joined it. Because remember, like, when Shane first bought the WCW, Shane was still looked at as a face there. And it was like when he was feuding with his father, and then Vince and Shane had the match at WrestleMania 17, and that was at the time when Shane was the owner of the WCW and Vince was the owner of the WWF, and yet Shane was still looked at as the face there, and Vince looked at as the heel. Like, I mean, I understand this was like they were still feuding with each other before, or Shane actually did buy the WCW, but even then, like, once he did, I mean, wouldn't it make sense for, like, the crowd to basically just turn on Shane and support Vince? Because after that, like, Shane really was not really on behalf of the WWF anymore. He was now a part of the WCW, and yet he was looked at as the face, while Vince, the owner of the company that the match took place in, and then basically representing the WWF in that match, he's looked at as the heel. Like, what sense does that even make? And then, like, even later on, like, as the year went on before ECW actually joined the invasion, you still had WCW really looking like faces. He says, like, you had Shane McMahon, like, still looking as a face when he battled other WWF guys like The Big Show and Kurt Angle. And even afterwards, like, you had, like, when Booker T invaded, he was looked at as the face, like, when he attacked Stone Cold and attacked Vince and stuff. And, yeah, basically you had a bunch of the WCW guys looking as, like, faces, and yet when ECW took part, it wasn't until then that the WCW was looked at as heels, and fans then were in support of the WWF. Like, what sense does it make? And especially, like, how does it make sense for then, like, ECW then here to look as a heel when just a few years before they were looked at as faces, and even, like, what happened a few years later, they were looked at as faces again. Like, what sense does it make? And what I'm talking about is then, like, when the ECW invasions, like, during the time of ECW's One Night Stand in 2005, and then, to a degree, again in 2006. Let's start with 2005, I mean, when the first ECW One Night Stand was announced, it was like making it seem like the ECW was good, and the WWE was bad. Like, what sense does it make? I mean, because throughout the weeks, you had, like, the build-up of the ECW guys coming, and throughout the weeks leading up to ECW One Night Stand in 2005, you had some ECW wrestlers invading the WWE shows, and yet they were looked at as faces, while you had, like, you remember, like, during that time in ECW's One Night Stand in 2005, there were, like, guys from the WWE, like, just joining up together to try to form an army to take out the ECW at ECW's One Night Stand in 2005. And yet, all that time, like, the guys from the WWE were looked at as heels. Like, what sense does it make? You just had a bunch of, like, the heel guys bonding together to make this anti-ECW army, because you had Eric Bischoff assembling some Raw guys that were all heels to try to take out ECW, and you also had, like, on SmackDown, you had, like, JBL and Kurt Angle, like, forming some SmackDown guys together to take out ECW, and then, like, all those guys from who Eric Bischoff assembled, and then JBL and Kurt Angle assembled, then they all banded together and then tried to take out ECW at ECW One Night Stand in 2005. And yet, all that time as that was going on WWE television, WWE was still being looked at as heels, while, like, the ECW guys still appeared as faces. Like, I remember, like, even, like, on the Raw before ECW's One Night Stand 2005, and even, like, on the SmackDown before that, you had all the ECW wrestlers invading and clearing out the ring, and then they were and looking as faces. Like, what does that even mean? Like, they're representing another company that was an enemy of the WWE, or a competitor for the WWE, and yet they're being looked at as faces, while people that are actually part of the company, but that this invasion's happening, is being looked at as heels. Like, what sense does it make doing that? And then when there was the other one during ECW's One Night Stand 2006, that was kind of like, that really wasn't, like, quite as, like, the WWE for that part, they weren't, like, completely being looked at as heels there. Like, it was, like, just all WWE versus all ECW. Like, you had, like, the face WWE guys coming there, well, being there, and yeah, they were just, like, feuding with a lot of the other ECW guys, but it wasn't like all that time the WWE was being looked at as heels. Like, you still had the faces there. There was, like, the John Cena versus RVD stuff, and Rey Mysterio versus Sabu, and you had other things like that. And I mean, it did make sense in a way, because at least that one, it wasn't, like, done as bad. At least it still made some more sense, because at least the WWE still, like, had their faces there, and they at least were being looked at as faces there. It's not like they were completely being looked at as heels, even though, like, this still took place in the WWE. Like, the WWE for that part, they did better at actually making the WWE guys who were actually faces at the time still be faces and be portrayed as faces there, so that was done better there. But, I mean, it's still, like, you had, like, some people still from the ECW still looking more dominant than the WWE guys. Alright, so, I mean, it still really didn't make sense in that way. I mean, wouldn't it make sense for the fans actually, because during the weeks leading up to it, it was, like, on WWE television with Raw and SmackDown, wouldn't it make sense for the WWE fans to actually be behind their WWE superstars all the way, actually be behind the superstars, or that are in the promotion that they are attending the show for right now? But even then, you still had, like, the ECW guys being look superior to the WWE guys, so they still had that problem there. And you also had, like, the small Big Show versus Floyd Mayweather rivalry in 2008. WWE was trying to portray, like, Big Show the wrestler as the heel, and Floyd Mayweather the boxer as a face. I mean, why are you doing that? I mean, don't you want to have your wrestler actually look good, since you are a wrestling promotion, and actually make him look like a good guy against a boxer and not a wrestler? So he's basically from a completely different sport and promotion, and you're actually having him look like the good guy against the wrestler. But at least there, like, when they actually had the match, like, Big Show was actually the one that the crowd was more behind. I mean, the crowd was, like, almost completely against Floyd Mayweather here, so at least the crowd actually knew who they wanted to get behind here and who they should be behind, so at least they got that problem out of the way. But still, I mean, it was still a problem the WWE had. They still had the wrestler look like the bad guy against the boxer from another promotion, yeah. And then the last one I want to talk about is the Sting versus Triple H stuff leading up to their match at WrestleMania last year. You had Sting basically, like, coming to the WWE, it was like he was representing WCW, and Triple H, well, and Sting was a face, and you had Triple H acting like the heel representing WWE. Like, they should really just lift that WCW stuff like out of the rivalry and just displayed as just Sting versus Triple H in WWE altogether. I mean, I know they had to reference WCW because that's what Sting was known for, but I mean, did they really have to make it like Sting was representing WCW and Triple H representing the WWE? I mean, Triple H was the heel, and he was basically like defending the honor of the company that the match took place in. I mean, doesn't that sound more like a face? But yet they were acting like Sting was WCW and Triple H was WWE. Like, couldn't they have just like made it, scrap the WCW stuff and just make it actually just between Sting and Triple H and not between WWE and WCW? Yeah, so, yeah, yeah, so this is just a problem that the WWE has had. I mean, you're the WWE, and, like, you're actually making another promotion look more dominant than you. Like, you should actually, like, try to actually make your company look first and foremost in importance and make it actually look good whenever you go against another promotion. So, yeah, so we'll see how much, like, if WWE ever tries to do this stuff again. You know what I mean? But let's say like Vince McMahon, if the WWE actually tried to go to another sport, like let's say like if Vince McMahon assembled a bunch of wrestlers to as a football team to go up against the team in the NFL. I mean, do you actually think that they would actually try to make the WWE guys actually look better than the actual football team, whichever team it would be? I don't think so. So yeah, WWE should really like stop trying to make other promotions look like they're superior to them. And then just actually, like, your WWE and your wrestling, make yourselves actually look like the good guys, and actually have yourselves look good by defending the honor of your company. So, yeah, that's all I really have to say about this. Just make yourselves actually look good, and make yourselves appear as faces whenever you do this. Because, I mean, it just doesn't make sense for you to actually make yourselves look like bad guys against another promotion. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about this. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And so, yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.